special conversation on ETRise top MSME ranking. I'm Miloni Bhatt. My guest today is Vikas Dimri, Head Business Banking, Deutsche Bank, India. Now, he's someone who will explain to us the challenges of funding MSMEs, the impact of some of the government schemes for MSMEs, and can banks do more for MSMEs? Vikas has over 2 decades of experience across manufacturing, technology, and banking industries. Before Deutsche Bank, he was a product manager for credit cards with Standard Chartered Bank India. He's a fitness enthusiast, an endurance athlete, and he has summited Mount Everest. Vikas, many thanks for your time today.
Absolute pleasure, Miloni. Thank you for your time as well. Great being here with you.
All right. So, can you tell us some of the products that you have for MSMEs, and is there a certain reason why they are a certain way?
Yes. So, for us, MSMEs are the future, and that this thought is deeply entrenched in our strategy from the retail banking perspective. We understand that the needs of the MSMEs are very different from those of larger corporates. And even within the MSMEs, there's a wide variety of MSMEs. The micro is very different from the small, and they are very different from the medium enterprises. And our trading come manufacturing enterprise differs very much from a service enterprise. And that is why our products are tailored to these requirements. So we largely offer, apart from transaction banking, we offer lending facilities to MSMEs. For micro and smaller enterprises whose needs are short or medium term financing, especially to take care of their temporary cash flow challenges or to leverage some immediate market opportunity, we offer them term loans of up to 1 crore in easily payable EMIs for up to 36 months. Where promoters do not have to bring in collateral or security, we sometimes leverage guarantees from the credit guarantee trust for micro and small enterprise for promoters where they do not have any collateral to offer, or they are short of collateral and for adequate financing they need more. So that's the kind of tailoring that we have done of our term loans. And for capex requirements, where the requirements are a little longer term and the ticket sizes are higher, we lend up to 35 crores, but with tenures of almost 12 to 15 years, which eases out the immediate cash flow stress that an MSME who's looking at growth facing, right? So that's how these are tailored. On the other hand, we, for working capital financing requirements, which are regular in nature, we obviously have regular overdrafts, cash credits, bill discounting, lines of credit, letters of credit, bank guarantees. But what we do for MSMEs is we allow them significant fungibility between these lines, because they don't have the ability to have, or the balance sheet to be able to absorb multiple lines on these kind. So we allow them fungibility so that these can be leveraged by MSMEs from time to time, depending on the business requirements. Yeah, so just on top of this, for a lot of our clients are into cross-border trade. And, we leverage Deutsche Bank's global strengths to bring to them export and import finance, and also leverage our very well-renowned foreign exchange and documentation handling, capabilities. So that's how we bring some of the top platforms that we use for corporate banking clients to our MSME segment.
For all of these segments that you mentioned, can you give us a sense of the checklist, a broad checklist that clients should have with them so that the process is made easier for them?
Well, actually, from a MSME's perspective, maintaining transparent accounts and maintaining accounts well is actually the starting point of managing credit and getting good quality credit. Secondly, having their debtors and suppliers payments in control. That is the second aspect I think MSMEs should focus on as part of a checklist. But from a documentation perspective, we don't believe that MSMEs should worry about too much of documentation. They should leave it to their bank to figure out. They should trust the bank to figure out what kind of credit they can get, and be transparent with the information to the bank. And as long as they can do that, banks, or rather, banks or NBFCs or other financial institutions will figure out a way to support the MSMEs once they have the confidence that the quality of information is is good and absolutely reliable.
It's estimated that just 5% of the 63 million MSMEs operate in the formal sector. Is it one of the reasons why banks hesitate to lend to SMEs?
Yes, I mean, that is the starting point. Like you rightly said, when we say 5% of these 6.5 crores, nearly 6.5 crores MSMEs are in the formal sector, I think this number is can be viewed very, very differently. But if you look at it from this 6.5 crore, where does this number come from? This is part of an MSME survey that was done, a census that was done. And from that census, it was identified that a large part of this informal, so-called informal MSME segment is really the nano household type of MSMEs. For them, being registered means increased load of paperwork, costs, and rent seeking without any tangible benefits, right? Then there is the next set, which is, who upon receiving a threshold size needs some kind of legitimacy to grow. Whether it is to get new clients, whether it is to get credit from the formal banking institutions, all of these are tangible benefits for them, but it just adds to more paperwork, shops and establishment certificates, PAN number, GST, multiple times they have to maintain, and it just adds to the overall cost of just being registered. That is possibly one of the reasons why not enough of them are in the formal sector. Having said that, without this information of the MSMEs location, size, where are they located, what kind of businesses, what kind of segments they are catering to, this lack of information is actually resulting in a gap in the policy making itself. And therefore, government schemes cannot be as well directed as the government would like it to be. And as banks and financial institutions, we want to rely on good quality information to be able to pass on the credit where it is due. And look, I mean, if you look at it from the bank's perspective or the financial institution's perspective, if they hand over good quality credit and they're confident that a large part of it is going to come back, they can actually lend more, right? And from the MSME's perspective, if they are able to give that comfort to the banks, they can help reduce the cost of debt because the perceived risk reduces.
Right.
So it is in the interest of the MSME to become registered and be part of the formal sector.
Right.
Once this information is available, we would be in far greater shape to be able to pass on the kind of credit that is required in the industry. But it's a chicken egg situation, really.
But talking of credit, the finance minister recently said that banks have sanctioned loans worth about 3.1 lakh crore under the emergency credit line guarantee scheme for the MSME sector, which was impacted deeply due to the COVID pandemic. And this scheme now, she has extended till March 2023. This will help businesses. What are the challenges that you see from the banking side?
Actually, this was a very welcome product and scheme that was launched somewhere in 2020. If I recollect, it was May 2020 that the announcement was made, and June, I think it was released. If you look at the timeline of COVID, the pandemic, and I hope and wish that this year we will have this behind us. But at the beginning of the pandemic, somewhere, let's say Jan or Feb of 2020, there was already the slowing down of the economy, which was affecting the MSMEs, and there was stress building up in the MSMEs, right? And then suddenly at the end of the year, nearing the end of the year, there was a complete lockdown, and MSMEs who had orders processed, manufactured, ready for delivery to close their books, they were all sitting with those orders, and because of a lockdown. And much like the larger corporates, of course, they don't have the wherewithal like those of the corporate to be able to absorb these losses. This resulted in a massive challenge for MSMEs. And of course, banks and NBFCs and financial institutions who are exposed to this industry also carry the risk that comes through along with these kind of disruptions. Although much needed from a health perspective. And when the announcement was made, something that had completely taken a back seat which is lending, credit demand, which had completely stopped. It actually dropped about 70%, if I remember correctly, was back in shape. So if one was to index credit demand as of January 20 at 100, I think in June, when this scheme was launched, the credit inquiries went up to nearly 120. Okay, that was the impact of the ECLGS scheme. I think not many people appreciate the impact that this has had in the lives of MSMEs, the real demand that existed of credit, and how it has supported banks to go out and support MSMEs without fear of default because of the government guarantee behind it, right? And this continued to be there till I think Jan 21, Jan Feb 21. In fact, actually right up to March. By end of the year, we were at I think nearly 40% higher credit offtake in the year than the previous year, which is quite something considering that this was a pandemic year, right? And then the second wave hit, and this is it was a very severe one, really. Apart from people being affected personally, businesses stopped. While there were no economic shutdowns announced by the government, entrepreneurs, their family members, they were unwell and they couldn't conduct business that they would like to do. That resulted again in a drop in demand and offtake. But I think later part of 2021, demand was back. We were back to pre-pandemic levels. And I must say that in the last 3 months, we are far ahead of the pre-pandemic demand at an industry level, especially in the MSME segment. And this is despite the fact that, the third wave, so-called third wave with Omicron, we're still not behind, we don't have that behind us, but the demand has been quite robust. From Deutsche Bank's perspective, if you look at, pre-pandemic, we were clocking about 15% growth in our MSME segment CAGR, 15% CAGR, and pandemic, of course, we know what really happened. And we are now looking at next 5 years growing at the same rate. So we believe that demand is back and that, this will continue to be a fantastic growth opportunity for all of us.
Right. You touched upon the fact that during the pandemic, a lot of MSMEs continued to incur expenses, but they could not, make money for products, which hit cash flows. It has impacted credit rating, which has also choked their access to credit. What can these small entrepreneurs do now to strengthen their businesses, or is it over for them?
There are, Melanie, the world of enterprise is about taking risks. Some risks pay off, some don't. And much as we would like every single entrepreneur to be successful, or every single entrepreneur would love to, multiply their businesses, in reality, that does not happen. So businesses which did not have a robust business model suffered because they were not able to take the impact of the pandemic. The pandemic was so severe that even robust businesses got affected significantly. And I think as entrepreneurs, they need to look back, and the entrepreneurs who still survived need to kind of build some resilience into their business models. And some of the ways of building this resilience is by ensuring that they have adequate reserves built over a period of time. Entrepreneurs by nature, Indian entrepreneurs by nature are very cost conscious. And they have sometimes missed growth opportunities in the interest of saving cost. I would think that entrepreneurs need to weigh the growth opportunities vis-a-vis costs very minutely, very very fine, with a very fine tooth comb, and then invest in future growth opportunities, because some of our enterprises, especially the MSME sectors, lie in the sunset industries, and there are enough and more sunrise industries coming up. ESG, or which is one of the big focus areas for Deutsche Bank, electric vehicles, green energy, the cyclical economy. All of these are areas which are new and which are building up. And if MSMEs do not pivot their existing business models, they are likely to suffer. Take for instance the two-wheeler business, right? Of course, it's a large sector for the industry. But there's a massive shift towards electric two-wheelers. And if you are an MSME who's in the supply chain of providing for petrol two-wheelers, you need to pivot your strategy now and get into a future segment. I think that is the other thing. Third is, over a period of time, MSMEs have built wealth out of their business. They have made money, and they have created wealth, and they have invested in assets. These assets were generated out of business growth. And then there are times when the business requires monetization of these assets. MSMEs should not fear bringing their assets to the table and offer as collateral to raise more funds. When they do that, that will help them get out of the liquidity squeeze. And finally, I spoke about transparency earlier. One has to acknowledge that your business is in trouble, and the government of India, along with RBI's kind of created mechanisms to support distressed enterprises through restructuring, through distressed loan sales, all of that. And sometimes one needs to just acknowledge that, okay, here is a time that I need to go ahead and get my loan restructured, ease out cash flows, be transparent, go to your bank, work out something that works for you. And that is one route of getting
out. Would you say Indian MSMEs have pivoted, been more transparent, managed to adapt during the pandemic, largely?
I'm a very big believer in the need of SMEs to be there in the economy for them to grow, and the enterprising and aspirational nature of Indian MSMEs. Over the last few years that I have been in this business, I meet a lot of clients on and off very regularly. Not just sit in one room and but rather go out, meet clients, see their setups, and I can tell you for sure that I know a lot of MSMEs who have been able to pivot and shift. In fact, they have used the pandemic as an opportunity to scale up their businesses, identify new opportunities, diversify, exit what now looks like not so resilient businesses, and they've been able to do that. I mean, that is the enterprising nature of our MSMEs. And that is really what the growth story of India is, right? And which is why banks like us want to remain invested in this business, because at the end of the day, resilience is there all over. Having said that, there will always be a few who may not be able to pivot, right?
Yeah.
And they will suffer. But I think it is also imperative that along with the government, along with the overall ecosystem, banks and financial institutions step up and educate SMEs about the challenges that they would face if the businesses are not resilient, the business models are not robust, and they should advise clients on how they need to build businesses. And for that reason, we work with a framework where every single client is assisted by a relationship manager. These are very knowledgeable and experienced relationship managers who know not just about the banking products, but also understand the SME's business. It is intrinsic to the philosophy of Deutsche Bank. And just yesterday, and just an anecdote here, Miloni, I was meeting a client who said that your relationship manager has been pushing me to grow because he's identified growth opportunities by meeting other clients. And he says that my business model is very strong, and that is why he wanted to meet me to reconfirm what the relationship manager was suggesting to the client. I think this partnership between a bank and an MSME is a longer term partnership. It works both ways. When the businesses grow and do well, banks do well. And if the business suffers, banks suffer. So we need to continue to be invested in the MSME's growth story. And that is something that I firmly believe in.
And we hope that the bank, continues to remain invested in the MSME clients. And as you say, your MSME clients continue to build on the trust, the partnership, and all the points that you've mentioned. Be more transparent, be able to pivot when the opportunity arises, and to embrace India's growth story. Vikas Dimri, Head of Business Banking, Deutsche Bank India, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you, Miloni. Absolute pleasure talking to you.